Good morning, Alex and friends. I'm Grace. Today is Tuesday, July 22nd, 2025, and you're listening to Alex's News. The weather in Riverside today will reach a comfortable high of 81.0 degrees Fahrenheit, with temperatures dipping to a low of 66.2 degrees overnight. A perfect day for outdoor activities, but remember to stay hydrated. Coming up on Alex's News, we'll examine the ongoing discussions and explore the reasoning behind the proposals to utilize military bases for housing migrants. Plus, as we head further into summer, we'll bring you essential guidance on how to best protect yourself from common health concerns, including both summer COVID risks and the dangers posed by wildfire smoke. All this and more, coming up on Alex's News. Stay tuned. We begin this morning with a significant development in immigration policy, as the Department of Homeland Security moves forward with controversial plans to expand immigrant detention capacity across the country and beyond. For more on this unfolding story, let us go live to our reporter Ethan, who has been following the intricate details of this detention dilemma. Ethan, tell us what is happening.
Grace, good to be with you. The Department of Homeland Security, or DHS, has just received formal approval from the Pentagon to use military bases in New Jersey and Indiana, along with an expansion of the U.S. naval base on Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, to detain immigrants who have entered the country illegally. This approval came in a letter from Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth to DHS on July 15, 7 days ago, a decision that has already ignited a fervent debate. According to reporting from NPR and SSB Crack News, DHS had initially requested this access last month.
Military resources for civilian detention? That sounds like quite a stretch. What was the Pentagon's reasoning for greenlighting this?
Indeed, Grace. Secretary Hegseth's letter, also cited by WTHR, explicitly stated that the use of these facilities, quote, will not negatively affect military training, operations, readiness, or other military requirements, end quote. The core purpose of this expansion, as reported by NPR and SSB Crack News, is to address a significant shortage of beds within the existing immigration detention system. DHS currently holds nearly 57,000 people, but possesses only about 41,000 beds. This plan aims to add space for up to 1,000 people at the Indiana and New Jersey bases combined.
So where are these new detention facilities actually going to be located?
3 key spots, Grace. First, Camp Atterbury, a National Guard base in Edinburgh, Indiana, which is specifically intended to assist with removal operations out of the Chicago area. WTHR notes that while Camp Atterbury has previously housed evacuees from Afghanistan and refugees from Ukraine, it has never before been used for ICE detainees. Second, Joint Base McGuire-Dix Lakehurst in New Jersey, designated to support Newark operations. And third, the U.S. Naval Base on Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, which will help with detentions and removals from Miami. NPR and SSB Crack News have detailed these specific locations.
Guantanamo Bay is certainly an interesting choice, given its history. How will these facilities be managed day to day?
Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, a component of DHS, will maintain round-the-clock oversight at each site. ICE staff and contractors will be responsible for all migrant care, including meals, medical screening, and transportation. This is according to NPR and SSB Crack News. It is worth noting that while ICE's acting director did not anticipate full reimbursement to the Pentagon for all overall costs, the approval letter specifies that DHS will pay the Department of Defense for costs associated with migrant detention at Joint Base McGuire-Dix Lakehurst in New Jersey.
And what is the broader context for this move? It feels like part of a larger strategy.
It absolutely is, Grace. This follows President Trump's declaration of a national emergency at the southern border on his first day in office, which provides DHS with the legal basis to access Department of Defense military resources. This is part of a larger administration effort to bolster immigration enforcement. Congress has also played a role, with a recent tax and spending bill allocating $45 billion specifically for immigration detention centers and $30 billion for increasing ICE personnel and transportation. Both NPR and SSB Crack News have reported extensively on this.
Such significant policy shifts always ignite a heated debate. What are lawmakers and advocacy groups saying?
You are right, Grace. It is a real political and legal powder keg. Democratic lawmakers, especially the New Jersey congressional delegation, issued a joint statement condemning the decision as an, quote, inappropriate use of our national defense system and military resources, end quote, warning that it, quote, jeopardizes military preparedness, end quote. Representative Herb Conaway of New Jersey, whose district includes Joint Base McGuire-Dix-Lakehurst, specifically labeled the plan an, quote, abhorrent use of that vital resource, end quote, as reported by NPR, SSB Crack News, and WTHR.
Abhorrent use, that is strong language. But there is support for this too, right?
Absolutely. Republican Representative Jefferson Shreve of Indiana, whose district includes Camp Atterbury, issued a statement supporting its use as part of a national effort to, quote, detain and remove criminal aliens who entered our country illegally, end quote, aligning with his view that, quote, Hoosiers voted for secure borders, end quote. That is from WTHR. Indiana Attorney General Todd Rokita expressed strong support, commending President Trump and Governor Braun, stating it is a, quote, critical step toward restoring the rule of law, end quote, and addressing the, quote, unfair crisis caused by unchecked illegal immigration, end quote. WTHR also reported on his remarks.
Let us talk about the legal challenges. Using military bases for civilian detention, especially Guantanamo Bay, must raise some eyebrows in the legal community.
It certainly does, Grace. The legal landscape here is incredibly complex. A primary distinction arises between detention at a domestic base like Camp Atterbury and the U.S. naval base at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. While the U.S. exercises, quote, complete jurisdiction and control, end quote, over Guantanamo Bay under a 1903 lease agreement, it is not formally part of U.S. sovereign territory. This unique status has led to significant legal debate over the application of U.S. constitutional rights.
So what are the implications for detainees at a place like Guantanamo versus those on the mainland?
For detainees at Guantanamo, the landmark 2008 Supreme Court case, Boumediene v. Bush, affirmed their constitutional right to the writ of habeas corpus, allowing them to challenge the legality of their detention in U.S. federal courts. However, the full scope of due process rights for non-citizen immigration detainees at Guantanamo, beyond habeas corpus, is less clear and less litigated than for those detained domestically. Critics raise concerns about the extreme isolation and lack of access to legal and medical resources. Al Jazeera, WFSU, ACLU.org, and lawfaremedia.org have all weighed in on these distinctions.
And what about the larger legal framework for using military facilities domestically?
That falls under the Posse Comitatus Act, a post-Civil War era law that generally prohibits the use of the U.S. military for domestic law enforcement purposes, including the apprehension and detention of individuals, unless expressly authorized by the Constitution or Congress. Critics argue that detaining civilian immigrants falls squarely within civilian law enforcement, making military involvement a potential violation. The government attempts to justify its actions as logistical support. This is a hotly debated point among legal scholars, as highlighted by lawfaremedia.org, NILC.org, and justsecurity.org.
And Camp Atterbury has housed people before, like Afghan evacuees. How is this different for ICE detainees?
That is an excellent point, Grace, and the distinction is crucial. Afghan and Ukrainian evacuees were largely humanitarian parolees or refugees, granting them a right to be in the U.S. temporarily with certain protections, generally not subject to detention, and with freedom of movement. ICE detainees, however, are in civil custody, confined pending immigration proceedings or deportation, with more circumscribed rights, no right to government-appointed legal counsel, and significant challenges accessing legal resources. The operational focus shifts from resettlement and integration services to security, custody, and basic medical care under ICE's national detention standards, as noted by IPM.org and militarytimes.com. It is a critical distinction that really highlights the varying legal implications.
It sounds like a legal minefield. Are there any recent court rulings on this, or is it all still up in the air?
Federal courts are indeed grappling with these complex questions, but a definitive consensus has yet to emerge. For instance, a federal judge in Washington, D.C. declined in March 2025 to issue a temporary restraining order to block migrant transfers to Guantanamo Bay. This was primarily because no detainees were present at the facility at the time of the ruling, leaving broader legal questions unresolved, according to courthousenews.com and AP News. Other cases challenging the deployment of the National Guard for immigration enforcement have seen temporary restraining orders issued, only to be stayed by higher courts. Legal analysts anticipate that a definitive resolution will likely require a Supreme Court ruling balancing executive branch powers against constitutional and statutory limitations on the military's domestic role, as suggested by lawfaremedia.org and brennancenter.org.
So, the legal battles are far from over. Ethan, thank you for breaking down this incredibly complex and evolving story for us. It is quite the detention dilemma.
My pleasure, Grace.
We will be right back with more news after the break. Welcome back to our second story this morning, as we turn our attention to a pressing public health issue that is unfortunately becoming a summer staple. We are seeing a complex interplay of a new COVID-19 surge and widespread wildfire smoke events across the country, creating a very tricky situation for public health officials and the public alike. For more on this, we turn to our reporter, Chloe, who has been sifting through the data. Chloe, it seems COVID-19 is back for its summer encore. What are epidemiologists telling us about this pattern?
Grace, it certainly feels like Groundhog Day, doesn't it? According to reporting from NPR, epidemiologists and the latest data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention confirm that this summer's COVID-19 surge has indeed begun. It is a trend that is, surprisingly, not new. WebMD noted yesterday, on July 21, 2025, that despite many people thinking of COVID-19 as primarily a winter virus, experts like Jody Guest, an epidemiologist at Emory University, explain that the virus has consistently shown two annual waves, one in winter and then another in summer, roughly 6 months apart. We have seen past summer peaks around August 1, 2022, September 30, 2023, and August 31, 2024.
That is fascinating. So why are we seeing these summer spikes when we are often out and about more?
It is a good question, Grace. WebMD suggests a few theories. During hot weather, people tend to spend more time indoors with air conditioning, which promotes closer contact in enclosed spaces. Think of it like a viral dance party, but without the fun. Also, the virus's rapid mutation rate combined with waning immunity from previous infections or vaccinations forces it to evolve enough to cause these new waves. It is constantly trying to stay one step ahead of us.
It sounds like it is certainly keeping us on our toes. What are the key indicators signaling this July 2025 surge, and where are we seeing the strongest activity?
There are three main factors, according to WebMD. First, we have a new virus strain, the NB1.8.1 variant, which has been nicknamed Nimbus. This variant is rapidly increasing, now accounting for as much as 43% of new U.S. cases, up from 24% in early June. While it is associated with a distinctive razor blade sore throat, current evidence suggests it does not cause more severe illness. The second indicator is increasing wastewater levels of SARS-CoV-2, particularly in states like Florida and Alabama. And third, we are seeing upticks in emergency room visits, with visits for young children reaching their highest point since March. The CDC now reports that the COVID-19 epidemic trend is growing or likely growing in more than half of U.S. states, with the strongest indicators in Arkansas, Hawaii, Illinois, Iowa, Kentucky, North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Texas, and Virginia. Infectious disease experts like Sabrina A. Asumo note that rises often begin in the South and then spread to other regions like the Northeast, a pattern similar to how rising variants in Asia or Europe can foreshadow U.S. increases.
So we have Nimbus, with its signature sore throat. Are there other new variants contributing to this?
Yes, Grace. Another key player is the Stratus variant, or XFG. Both Nimbus and Stratus are Omicron descendants and are proving to be more transmissible. Nimbus, NB 1.8.1, is known for that particularly painful razor blade sore throat because of how efficiently it binds to the ACE2 receptor, which is the main entry point for the virus into our cells. It is estimated to be 2.5 times more infectious than the previously prevalent variant, LP.8.1. It is a master of cellular entry. Stratus, on the other hand, is a recombinant variant, meaning it is a hybrid of two others, and its main advantage appears to be its proficient immune evasion. It is a bit more slippery, dodging a wider range of antibodies. Some reports also link Stratus to hoarseness or a rough voice. Both have been designated as variants under monitoring by the World Health Organization, but there is no evidence suggesting either causes more severe disease or hospitalizations.
That is good news, relatively speaking. Now, let us talk about the other cloud hanging over us, literally wildfire smoke. How is this compounding the public health challenge?
This is where things get even more complicated, Grace. A Harvard Gazette article published yesterday, July 21, 2025, highlights wildfire smoke as a significantly overlooked climate change danger. Loretta Mickley, an atmospheric chemist at Harvard, emphasizes that for too long, discussions focused only on temperature and sea level rise, ignoring the far-reaching health consequences of smoke, even hundreds of miles downwind. Research now shows wildfire smoke is particularly toxic, containing heavy metals and volatile organic compounds. The most dangerous component is PM2.5, tiny particles that can penetrate deep into the lungs and enter the bloodstream, causing a cascade of inflammation and wreak havoc on health. It can lead to reproductive health issues, immune system dysfunction, and chronic diseases. Crucially, smoke exposure can worsen COVID-19 symptoms, has an early link to dementia, and increases emergency hospitalizations. Mickley and co-authors estimated that in 2020 alone, smoke contributed to nearly 37,000 excess deaths. It is truly a burning issue, adding another layer to our health challenges.
That is a staggering number of deaths. And this brings us to a really difficult piece of advice. How do we balance the recommendations to ventilate for COVID-19 with the need to seal up our homes from wildfire smoke? It seems like a complete contradiction.
It is, Grace, and it is a major public health challenge. The CDC and EPA advise a layered approach that prioritizes keeping wildfire smoke out while enhancing indoor air filtration to address both threats. When smoke is present, the consensus is to prioritize sealing the home from smoke. That means windows and doors must remain closed. If you have central air conditioning, set it to recirculate mode to avoid drawing in smoky outdoor air. The focus then shifts to cleaning the air already inside your home.
So what are the best ways to clean that indoor air?
For homes with central HVAC, upgrading to a MERV 13 rated filter, or the highest rating compatible with your system, is recommended. Portable air cleaners with HEPA filters are highly effective for a single room. And for those without commercial purifiers, the CDC and other agencies even endorse do-it-yourself air filters like the Corsi Rosenthal box. These use 4 or 5 MERV 13 air filters and a box fan, and research suggests they can be as effective as commercial ones. The Washington State Department of Health even suggested considering these in their June 2025 guidance. You can also create a clean room by designating one room, keeping its windows and doors closed, and running a portable or DIY air cleaner continuously. Also, avoid activities that further pollute indoor air, like burning candles or using gas stoves. And always monitor your local air quality index to know when it is safe to open windows.
That is incredibly helpful advice for navigating these two concurrent threats. What about N95 masks? Do they offer dual protection?
They do, Grace. This is one area where the guidance aligns. NIOSH-approved N95 respirators are highly effective at filtering both airborne viral particles, like SARS-CoV-2, and the fine particulate matter found in wildfire smoke. The CDC advises wearing a properly fitted N95 if you must be outdoors in smoky conditions, and they offer the highest level of protection against COVID-19 in crowded or poorly ventilated indoor spaces. Just make sure they are without exhalation valves, as those allow unfiltered breath to escape. They truly offer a dual defense in this smoky, viral atmosphere.
Chloe, thank you for clearing the air on these vital public health concerns. We really appreciate your comprehensive reporting.
My pleasure, Grace.
And that is a look at the overlapping challenges of the summer COVID-19 surge and wildfire smoke. We will be right back after the break. Here are some other headlines. In a move rocking the historical community, the Trump administration has released over 230,000 long-sealed FBI files on the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The digital document dump, originally slated for 2027, details extensive government surveillance of the civil rights leader. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard praised the release as a step toward transparency. But Dr. King's surviving children condemned it, arguing the files were created to discredit their father and that the release disregards their family's continuing grief. In a statement, they urged the public to view the files with empathy and historical context, while reiterating their belief that James Earl Ray did not act alone in the assassination. Adding another layer, Dr. King's niece, Alveda King, thanked President Trump for the move. However, some commentators suggest the timing is a calculated maneuver, less about making history and more about making headlines to distract from other political issues. Meanwhile, a debate over political maps is drawing some new lines within the Democratic Party. New York Representative Richie Torres is urging Democrats to aggressively pursue redistricting in states they control, saying they must fight fire with fire against Republican-led efforts in states like Texas. The call comes as Texas Republicans, reportedly at the urging of President Trump, aim to redraw congressional maps in their favor. Torres argues that Democrats should not unilaterally disarm in the face of partisan gerrymandering. The sentiment is echoed by former Texas Congressman Beto O'Rourke and has even prompted California Governor Gavin Newsom to reconsider his state's nonpartisan commission. The debate highlights a deep party conflict between upholding principles of fair representation and playing political hardball to avoid being left out in the electoral cold. Up in the skies over North Dakota, it was a little too close for comfort on Friday. The FAA is investigating a near miss between a SkyWest passenger jet and an Air Force B-52 bomber near Minot. The pilot of the commercial flight, on final approach, was forced to take what he called an aggressive maneuver to avoid the bomber, which was in the area for a state fair flyover. In a message to passengers, the visibly frustrated pilot said he received no warning from air traffic control about the massive aircraft in his path. The Air Force has confirmed it is looking into the high-stakes encounter. The Trump administration has released about $1.3 billion in frozen federal funding for after-school programs, but it appears the money comes with some significant strings attached. The funds were unfrozen after pressure from states, but the Office of Management and Budget has put guardrails in place. States must now certify that the money will not be used to promote what the administration calls a quote-quote radical left-wing DEI agenda. The administration warns it will rescind any funding not spent on allowable activities. While these after-school funds are now flowing, over $5 billion for other critical K-12 programs, including teacher training and support for migrant students, remains frozen. And finally, we're diving into a serious safety alert for parents. A massive recall has been issued for over 5.2 million above-ground swimming pools sold in the U.S. and Canada. The recall affects pools 48 inches or taller from manufacturers Bestway, Intex, and Polygroup. The hazard lies with the pool's outer compression straps, which can act as a foothold, allowing young children to climb in unsupervised. Tragically, this design flaw has been linked to the drowning deaths of 9 children in the United States. The pools were sold at major retailers like Walmart, Target, and Costco. Manufacturers are offering a free repair kit to replace the hazardous strap. Owners are urged to contact the company immediately and, in the meantime, ensure children cannot access the pools. That's all we have for now. Today's episode was made by Alexander King with Claude Sonnet 4.0, Gemini Pro 2.5, Gemini Flash 2.5, and Google Cloud Text-to-Speech. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow, Alex.